Yes, good morning. We do not have a quorum. We'll wait for some trustees to arrive. As soon as they do, we'll start the meeting. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order of the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority. First item from the chairman is a MAPS 4 Transit Planned Growth Report on the BRT Alternative Analysis presented by Kimber Horn, and Luke Schmidt is going to present today. If he's ready, we'll go ahead and get that update. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for having me here today. My name is Luke Schmidt. I'm the Deputy Project Manager for the MAPS 4 Embark Transit Plan Growth BRT Alternatives Analysis Project. Kind of a mouthful, right? So today I'm going to give you a quick overview of the project. We're going to talk about the study areas, as well as the public involvement and upcoming engagement work that we're doing with the project. So looking forward to kind of walking through this. So at a high level, the MAPS 4 program has allocated over $61 million to implement 2 bus rapid transit corridors in the city. We're really focused on 2 study areas, the Northeast study area and the South study area is what we're calling those. Our objective with our scope of work is really focused on developing an alternatives analysis to define those corridors and come up with a locally preferred alternative. Just thinking big picture, the timeline for this project is we're looking at, from the MAPS 4 implementation plan, an opening of 2028 for the Northeast and an opening of 2029 for the South corridors. So first I want to talk a little bit about the schedule of the project as well for the alternatives analysis. We see 3 major stages. We see a discover phase, a refine phase, and a select phase. So currently we're in the discover phase, where we're identifying the key connections that we'll be looking at with this project. Throughout the schedule, stakeholder presentations and coordination will be critical, as well as public involvement. So we have 3 major blocks that we'll be looking to connect with the community, especially to get very specific feedback. Right now, we're in the discover phase in the public involvement, which is really focused on key locations that we need to connect to and considerations for the study areas. So with the discover phase, there's a handful of different things that feed into a high potential alternative. So right now we're focused on stakeholder feedback, community input, really diving into the data for the area, as well as utilizing the project goals to determine our priorities. That'll then lead into a universal alternatives. We'll be looking at a handful of different corridors. We'll be identifying transit needs in those areas as well, and really establish a framework to evaluate the universal alternatives. This will lead to screening, which will then determine some high potential alternatives that we'll dive into further. So that's the discover phase in a nutshell that we're working on right now. This work is really building on the past great work that's been done in the region as well. So starting with the fixed guideway study in 2005, we'll be building on the past work that's been done, and then also leveraging all the great work that's been done over the last 5 or 10 years with the commuter corridor study, the RTA transit system plan, as well as the OKC Moves bus study. So all of these studies will be built into the work that we're doing as part of the discover phase as well. And with this, Embark's vision and mission will be kind of the bedrock that we'll be measuring the alternatives off of to create a world-class transportation that is accessible to all and that all want to access it. Along those lines, we've also determined some specific project goals and objectives for this project as well. Really focusing on connecting communities and resources. We're looking to facilitate prosperity and economic growth, expand equitable mobility options, move people efficiently, and utilize available resources. So Embark's vision and mission, as well as these goals and objectives, will really be critical as we're going through the alternatives analysis process. So now let's dive into the process going forward, as well as some of the study area considerations. So first, let's talk about the project development process. So the work that we're doing is really confined to the alternatives analysis process. In the beginning of 2024, we'll have an alternative and a locally preferred alternative. And then from there, environmental engineering will progress after that, followed by implementation, really focusing on design and construction. As we talk about the study areas, there's some very specific considerations that we wanted to note. One of those being the planned regional transportation authority corridors that are under alternatives analysis right now. So there's a significant amount of transit work going on in the region, so we need to make sure that these corridors are heavily connected to those efforts as well. Similarly, Northwest BRT is currently under construction, so that's another key connection point. We're also with this project looking at major corridors throughout the city. We want to understand how best to utilize the existing infrastructure for bus rapid transit. Another element that we'll be focusing on is travel time runs. We want to make sure that BRT is competitive to driving a vehicle, so that'll be one of the considerations that we're looking at as well. And then last but not least, as I talked about with the public involvement process, we're really focused on key destinations that we need to connect to and connect from. So now let's dive into the two study areas. The first study area is what we're calling the Northeast study area. The Northeast study area is bound by Britain to the north, approximately Bryan to the east, I-40 to the south, and I-235 to the west. One thing to note on this map, you can see some purple shading. So those are actually the Regional Transportation Authority corridors that are under study right now as part of the system plan. So again, it's really important that this project and the RTA projects are well coordinated. Likewise, you can see the Northwest BRT corridor going up and to the left on the screen. Another thing to note on this slide as well is some typical drive shed circles. So you can see what a 20-minute travel time would look like and a 45-minute travel time, just to give you some context on the scale of this study area for Northeast. We've also identified a handful of different critical connection points that we're going to be looking at, and this will be further defined as we go through the public involvement process. Now stepping to the south study area, again, we're showing some of those highlights for the Regional Transportation Authority corridors that are under study. One is from the downtown to the airport, and there's another connection from the downtown out east, and then a connection from downtown to the south. So our study area is really defined by those corridors, which is approximately I-35 to the east, 119th to the south, I-44 to the west, and then the downtown to the north. So it's kind of the bounds that we're looking at for the south study area. And again, we have some of those drive drive sheds shown on the map as well, so you can see what approximately a 20-minute drive would be and a 45-minute drive would be. So now I want to take a minute and talk about some of the public involvement and upcoming engagement with this project. So first and foremost, our project website is maps4brt.com. So this will be the landing page for the public to be able to access project sheets, get updates on meeting invites, and just really connect. We have a survey and a map survey that's currently live on the website today. The other thing that we're going to be looking at throughout the outreach program is connecting with the local community contacts to determine the best ways that we can connect with the community, both with pop-up events as well as public meetings. A few engagement activities that I wanted to hit on. So we actually had a handful of public meetings scheduled the last couple weeks, but with the recent snow, we've been rescheduling those. So we have a few coming up next week, as well as the following week. So I have a calendar of those schedules. And then we have a few pop-up events as well coming up in March, or in February. So those will all be posted on our website as we continue to go through the project. So with that, I'd love to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the trustees? That's a great report. Thank you.
Thank you.
The second item from the chairman is the OKC Moves Phase 1 implementation, and that's going to be presented by Chip Nolan from Embark.
Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well today. Thanks for having me. I'll be talking about some upcoming community meetings, about some service changes we hope to roll out this fall with the launch of the Northwest Rapid BRT line. So this PowerPoint, we'll be giving the same version of this PowerPoint at all of our community meetings over the next 6 weeks, and so you can see the agenda here of what we'll be going through today. So this is a copy of the public notice that's going to go out, details all the community meetings we're going to have, the dates, times, locations, how to submit comments to us, as well as how to request this information in different languages in accordance with our Title VI policy. Again, these are at different locations around the city, mostly libraries. We'll also be having an event around lunchtime at the Transit Center, and then hoping to have the public hearing at our April board meeting here. So we'll be giving you a little bit of background and overview of these changes and what we'll be doing, the context. So this is our current bus route network in context of the city council wards, just to show you where the bus routes we have today serve and our city boundaries and what that looks like. So a little bit of background. If you remember, in 2021 and 2022, we took on a year-long planning process with OKC Moves using our consultant Nelson Nygaard. That planning process had multiple opportunities for stakeholder community engagement, and the board gave lots of great feedback during that process, collected lots of data, and the results of that planning study were a phase 1 and a phase 2. Phase 1 is mostly cost-neutral recommendations that we're focused on now, and phase 2 is long-range, unfunded recommendations that we'll be pursuing as funds become available over time. And then the goal of all of this is to improve on-time performance, increase ridership, and integrate the Northwest Rapid BRT line into our existing bus route network. And the full plan is available at okcmoves.org if you want to read through that whole plan. So again, some of the goals of this is to integrate the Northwest Rapid BRT line into existing bus route networks so that they can, they're integrated, you can make transfers, you can make connections with the Northwest Rapid and our local bus service. We're extending certain bus routes to new destinations. By eliminating some one-way deviations, we're focusing service on major arterial streets and making sure that we have bus service on both the inbound and outbound direction of those stops. We're also hope to improve on-time performance by adjusting some time points and some schedules, even for routes that may not be seeing any significant changes. And again, we hope to roll this out with the launch, in conjunction with the launch of the Northwest Rapid BRT line this fall. So this map should be familiar to all of you, but this is an opportunity for us to talk about Northwest Rapid BRT service in these community meetings, tell them about the fast, frequent service, tell them about this new type of service that's going to connect downtown with the northwest part of the city along Classen and Northwest Expressway, and how that integrates into our network. So most of you have seen these changes before, but we'll kind of touch on the kind of route by route changes that we'll be recommending as part of this service change. So Route 2, we are recommending to only do the McGuire Plaza loop on the inbound direction to downtown. The McGuire Plaza is on 12th, and you can still walk a block to catch the bus in the outbound direction. But most of the McGuire Plaza trips are from McGuire Plaza to downtown and back, so we didn't think that extra loop in the outbound direction was necessary. Route 3 will be combining Route 3 in the northeast side of town with the top half of Route 5. We'll be eliminating some overlap with the Northwest Rapid BRT line along Classen. We'll also be connecting the northeast part of town with the Belle Isle and the Quail Springs Mall areas and allowing some transfer opportunities with the BRT. Route 8, we're extending out to Council Northwest Expressway. There's a Walmart out there, and this came up several times during our planning process when we met with the public, when we met with our bus operators, and some outreach and some focus groups, and this location came up a lot, and so we were able to, glad that we were able to extend out to this part of town, as well as provide another transfer opportunity with the BRT along 56th Street. So these next few are smaller changes, with the goal of improving on-time performance and reliability, focusing service on major arterials. So we'll be taking Route 12 on Exchange, Reno, and Walker in and out of downtown. 13, sort of similar, we're taking Reno and Hudson in and out of downtown. 16, Reno and Walker in and out of downtown, hopefully getting focusing on major arterials, getting it out of downtown a little bit faster, improving on-time performance a little bit for those routes. 23, we will not be doing the inner loop on 24th Street for Route 23. We'll still be serving the state capitol and the Health Science Center, just again, kind of streamlining this route a little bit to make it a little bit faster, a little bit more reliable for our customers, but still serving all the same destinations. Route 24, we'll still be serving the OU Health Science Center and downtown, making this more of a streamlined commuter express route, getting OU students, workers in the downtown area in and out of downtown quickly, and getting them home quickly, kind of making this route a little bit faster, helping with transfers with other routes, kind of making it more direct and reliable. We also wanted to touch on Embark Plus, a paratransit service for people with disabilities that may not be able to use our regular bus route service. When you adjust your bus route service, you also have to adjust your paratransit service in accordance with FTA requirements. I think for the most part, some customers will go from Zone 2 to Zone 1, but for the most part, don't anticipate any significant changes in our paratransit service as part of this. The zones will stay the same. The zone fares will stay the same. There'll be some minor adjustments to where those zones are and what those maps look like, but for the most part, fairly small change for paratransit, but we did want to note it here for everybody. So our project schedule, so over the next 6 weeks, we'll be having our community meetings, hoping to come back to you with our formal public hearing in April and with final approval at the May board meeting, listening to all the comments and feedback that we get, incorporating that into a final recommendation at the May board meeting, and then transitioning into marketing and promotion of the new service ahead of the launch this fall. We are collecting comments through the website, email, phone. We'll also be having comment cards at all the meetings. We encourage people to attend the community meetings, tell us what they think about these service changes so that we can hopefully make this service good for them and something that's going to be successful, we hope. And this is what the comment card looks like that we'll be having at our community meetings. So it was a lot. Tried to get through that quickly, be respectful of your time, but happy to answer any questions that you might have about this.
So Chip, I noticed that you had multiple languages on the public notice of the meeting, but not on the comment card.
Yeah, we can, yes, we can add that language. We can see if we can add that to this card.
I think that might be helpful.
I think, oh, go ahead.
Nope, please.
Okay. I think Chip had mentioned it early on, but it's also something that we will stress at every opportunity during the public meetings that, OKC Moves was, as the trust knows, was a very ambitious plan. I mean, it basically kind of set the trajectory of improving our bus system really over maybe the next 10 years. So this is just that phase one, kind of the cost neutral or kind of very low cost implementation to make the additional changes, obviously additional resources would be needed, but I think that's just an important message. I want to make sure we reminded the trust that what we're doing here today and in the future and we'll bring back is just kind of that first step towards OKC Moves.
And that first step includes the BRT implementation, which is a major part.
Exactly, yeah, it's a
But,
very, yeah.
At the same time.
So speaking of the BRT implementation, when I was looking at the earlier presentation and then seeing this one, Meridian, I'm wondering if the, I mean, I don't know where this study could take place, but when I think about possible BRT expansion to the west, and then when I think about airport connectivity, I didn't see where we were going to study, but I'm wondering if we could. What would it look like to have like BRT service from the airport on Meridian all the way down to the Meridian and Northwest Expressway park and ride? Because until I saw that map a little bit ago, I've always thought about connecting people from the airport down here to downtown where the hotels are. But Northwest Expressway, right, has a series of hotels, and it's not that is my ward. The next part I'm gonna talk about is not my ward, but Memorial and Ward 8 and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of hotels there as well and a lot of development. And I just wonder what would happen if someone could leave the airport and better connect to the Northwest BRT on Northwest Expressway, and then be able to travel up and down that corridor, carless. And honestly, now that Ward 2, Meridian used to be our western boundary, but now it's MacArthur, Grove, these sorts of streets, Ann Arbor, up against War Acres and Bethany. And I just feel like Meridian needs a lot of love. Like, it deserves it. Like, there's some really historic, beautiful neighborhoods over there. And quite frankly, at 63rd and Meridian, Casa Perico's top 5 Oklahoma restaurants, as far as I'm concerned. But I really believe that. I believe that strongly. But up and down Meridian, I just think I think if transit were there, the opportunity for transit-oriented development comes. But I haven't seen us look at that, and I missed it until I saw the map from the earlier presentation. Some of y'all are out there knowing I'm talking about Casa Perico. Y'all know. But are we looking at this? This is something that, is that ship sailed in terms of study?
Well, so for OKC Moves, I'd say it has. However, the RTA is going to be studying in fact, there's an agenda item, as you know, today. The RTA is going to be studying a connection from downtown to the airport, which I have to imagine would include Meridian somewhere in that study. And likely that will be vetted through a similar process to what Mr. Schmidt had described from Kimley Horn about, it's an option. It's included in that universe of alternatives, and then based on various criteria, maybe that is the best way to serve the airport, maybe not. But I mean, to your point, I'm certain it will be looked at as part of that RTA study. But again, the focus has always been kind of on downtown to the airport. But we will engage those consultants, certainly engage those consultants in that discussion of connecting, the airport to basically far northwest Oklahoma City. However, keep in mind too, thinking of our ultimate goal, or I think the Trust's ultimate goal, that world-class transportation, accessible to all. Things like BRT and improved frequency and platforms, more convenience. There would also potentially be an opportunity if the corridor went from downtown to the airport, to then obviously connect to the Northwest BRT that would get you towards Northwest Oklahoma City, or any of the version of Route 8 or Route 3. So the connections would still be there from someone coming into the airport wanting to get to a hotel in Northwest Oklahoma City. In fact, most of those are there if there were service to the airport, most of those connections would be there in the OKC Moves study. Not a direct connection, but there would be the connections.
Yeah, I guess what I would like with that RTA then is just someone to look at that Meridian connectivity, whether it's a BRT line that connects to Expressway, or if it's, you know, being able to better utilize one of our bus routes that
Yeah.
can become a 15-minute connector, you know, 15-minute frequency along the route. I think, you know, it's there, but then, of course, going further west as well. But I just think Meridian is such a prime street that because I live in the Paseo, I'm not always over there. But
Sure.
being over there more recently, it's just on my mind pretty heavily. So anyway, thanks.
Yep, we'll look at it.
So Jason, am I mistaken, but aren't we studying these two particular BRT corridors because of the MAPS 4 money and how the MAPS 4 resolution kind of specified these two BRT corridors?
Yes, for the two MAPS 4
Right.
BRTs that were presented by Kimley Horn this morning.
Right, so certainly
yes.
there's an opportunity going forward to consider other routes, but I think that the direction was chosen because of the funding availability on this,
Sure.
at least in the shorter term.
No, yeah, in the shorter term, MAPS 4 does south and northeast, absolutely. But because the RTA is now studying the airport and
Yeah.
western connections, that's why I'm now thinking about Meridian. And I had missed it because I was so focused on MAPS 4. So,
Yeah, and I think might also be a good time just to kind of mention or remind the trust the amount of coordination that occurs between the RTA and COTPA Embark. Chip represents us at, you know, nearly Chip and Jesse, but Chip especially represents us at the Connectivity Committee meetings that MAPS 4 holds. I know you're part of that. We work with Luke and his team on the RTA side of things. So our paths cross monthly, sometimes weekly. And then not to speak too much for you, Luke, but I understand there's a lot of coordination even between Kimley Horn. You know, so there's a team of Kimley Horn consultants working on the MAPS 4 alternatives analysis. There's a team of Kimley Horn consultants working for the RTA. I know they have intentional coordination meetings, if you will, just between those two teams, with the idea of making sure that all of these exciting changes, in my mind, very exciting changes to our transit system, are all going to work as a system. So all that to say, there's plenty of opportunity to consider that suggestion and incorporate it into those analyses.
cool, thanks.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions for Chip and the OKC Moves Phase 1? Thank you for your update.
Thanks.
Okay. Moving on, are there any residents to be heard? If not, we'll go on to item 4, which is approval of the minutes of the January 6th COPTA board meeting. Is there a motion to receive those? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, vote on your screens. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to item 5, the consent docket. There are 5 items on the consent docket. Would any of the trustees like any of those moved or to individual consideration, or? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent docket? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote on your screen. Motion passes. Moving on to items for individual consideration. Item A is a resolution authorizing the administrator to execute a paper grant agreement with the FTA and the Office of the Secretary of Transportation for funding of an alternative analysis for the Central Oklahoma Regional Transit Corridors to promote economic development and equity inclusion project under the Department of Transportation Rebuilding America Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity Grant Program. Jason, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah,
I don't have anything to add to that. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for bearing with us on that long title, Vice Chairman, but it was necessary to get all the detail in there. So, yes, if I could, I'd like to brief the trust on items A and B together on the individual. They're companion items, so to speak. So, this first item, as you mentioned, back in July of 21, the board authorized staff to apply for a RAISE grant. That is the Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity program. Very competitive grant program. The predecessor to the RAISE was the BUILD grant, which we know we benefited from the BUILD grant as an opportunity to fund the Northwest BRT. So we were notified that COTPA was successfully competed and awarded a RAISE grant. And just as a reminder, we submitted this grant application on behalf of the RTA. So it's the way the FTA or the DOT looks at these funds, it's funding for the region. And so knowing that the RTA was facilitating or studying high capacity transit, obviously the relationship between COTPA and RTA, COTPA applied for that grant on behalf of the RTA, so the RTA, if we were awarded that grant through a subrecipient agreement, the RTA would have the funds to really study the two remaining high-capacity corridors within the RTA's System Vision Plan. So if you remember, the System Vision Plan that the RTA adopted has a north-south corridor, it has an east corridor connecting downtown to Tinker, and those are all currently under study. There was also two other corridors that were adopted as part of that system plan, a west corridor, so just straight out to the western edge of Oklahoma City, and then a corridor from downtown to the airport. And so this entire grant application was based on trying to secure the funds to do the two alternatives analysis for those west corridors. So all that said to say, we were successfully awarded that grant. In the months following the award notification, we've been negotiating what's called a paper grant agreement, basically a contract between COTPA and DOT, how we're going to expend and manage these funds. So we are on the cusp, I would say, of having that paper grant agreement negotiated. And so with approval of this item, that would authorize the administrator to sign that paper grant agreement. And the idea of authorizing the administrator to sign that is, again, we're very close to negotiating or having that negotiation complete. And because of the timing, the work we're trying to coordinate with RTA, we really we're trying not to have to put this off another month or two just based on meeting schedules. So we're happy to bring that paper grant agreement back as a ratification so the trust can officially receive it and see it. But that's the plan. And then finally, and please, and thank you for all the time on the comments on this one. I think the other thing that's important for the trust to be reminded of is we actually applied, and the resolution indicates we applied for a $1.5 million grant overall. So $1 million federal funds, 500 local. We were awarded a $1.2 million grant, 800,000 federal and 400,000 local. So, and that's explained in the resolution, but I just wanted to point that out. And then finally, the $400,000 local match will be funded by the RTA. So there's really no local match or financial obligation from COTPA in executing this paper grant agreement. I say that because item B on the individual items for consideration is an agreement between the RTA and COTPA. We call it a subrecipient grant agreement. We've had these in place for many years with the city of Edmond. We've done a previous subrecipient grant agreement with the RTA. Basically, as the the name of the agreement applies, it's basically spells out that COTPA will reimburse the RTA for qualified expenses related to the alternatives analysis and how that process is going to work. So COTPA really becomes kind of a pass-through if you will, but we need to have that subrecipient agreement in place. It meets federal requirements, and in addition, it also ensures that any subrecipient of COTPA follows the same federal requirements and through any type of solicitation issues the same federal disclosures that we would as a direct recipient of funds. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Jason? If not, we'll go ahead and vote on item A, which is the resolution to authorize the paper grant agreement. It's been moved and seconded. Would you all vote on your electronic screens? Motion passes. Item B then is the establishing the agreement with the RTA as a subrecipient. So is there a motion and a second? Please vote electronically. Motion passes. So item C is an agreement with the Oklahoma City Convention and Visitors Bureau to provide a non-exclusive OKC streetcar vehicle on the Bricktown Loop during designated CVB-hosted events of 200 attendees or more, and establish a pricing agreement for conventions. Jason?
Yes, sir. This is an agreement I know that we staff and OKC Streetcar are excited about. It's something we've been working towards for several months now with the Convention Visitors Bureau. And, you know, when we think about the vision of the OKC Streetcar, I think we as a transit provider and then the city as a community has always envisioned that streetcar really complementing the new MAPS 3 Convention Center, right? So as people are coming into our downtown, staying several days for a convention, experiencing the vibrancy of our downtown environment that we've created, like, where's the transportation? And so we have the Oklahoma City Streetcar that provides that circulation through all of downtown for convention goers. And so what we as a transit provider and what the CVB recognizes is that as we try to make Oklahoma City as competitive as we can for these conventions, being able to offer a transportation solution for people that attend conventions and kind of having that built into the convention offering, if you will, without necessarily requiring attendees to, you know, purchase separate passes and that kind of thing. You know, but it's all about convenience. That's really what we're working towards. And so we've worked with the CVB in negotiating an agreement that's here for you today to consider. And, you know, you can see the pricing in the memo and the agreement itself. But basically what the CVB has determined is through this agreement for conventions of 750 attendees expected or less, you know, they will pay Embark, COTPA, $750 a day for the convention attendees, if you will, to be able to use the system. Conventions in excess of 750, we negotiated a rate of $1,125 per day. And so again, it allows us to generate some revenue, obviously, but at the same time, hopefully more than anything, instills that convenience of those that are attending the convention. They can simply board the streetcar, get to one of the many downtown hotels or restaurants, and hopefully enjoy the downtown environment while they're here. So really wanted to just thank the CVB for their partnership, and then staff too. Staff worked on this quite a bit.
And it adds the Bricktown Loop on a Monday through Friday basis on those days in which we have this agreement in
Yep,
place.
for those conventions that have that certain amount of expected attendees, yes.
Okay, are there any other questions on this item?
It's not exactly this item, but it's related. When you were talking to Brent and me about this the other day, it reminded me, having just sat with the Western Avenue District, I said to them to reach out to Embark as the BRT comes online, because 36th and Classen is but a block walk, right, to the entrance, but, you know, whether it's guest room records, you know, whatever sort of businesses are there. And so rather than wait for them to come to you all, I am saying to you all now, like, I think that's another opportunity. Probably the same, you know, again, not my ward, but Plaza District, but just thinking about like, as that service comes online, letting people who are coming to visit know that that BRT corridor connects them to these historic commercial districts. And I think that's probably especially important because the beautification survey results we received from the consultant who's working on that for MAPS 4, and far and above, I'm sure some of you already saw this, but far and above when they asked people from, they asked, well, when someone's visiting you from out of the city or out of the state, where do you take them? What do you do? And it's the commercial districts, like just overwhelmingly. And so I see that BRT as a connecting thread, but I also think when I said this to the Western District, they weren't thinking like that yet. Like they saw it as too far away, and they didn't think that maybe the people who would come to their district would use the public transit. So I just think we have to be very intentional about engaging Plaza, Asian District, Paseo, and Western Avenue. And I think talking to the Convention and Visitors Bureau about working with us on that might be useful as well. Thanks.
That's good. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, is there a motion to approve item C? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item D is a resolution authorizing the application for a 2023 U.S. Department of Transportation RAISE grant program and the execution of all documents associated with the grant and approving matching funds in the amount of $1,460,000. Jason?
Yes, sir. So this will be the last RAISE grant item for the agenda. I know we've talked a lot about RAISE grants today. So whereas the previous items were all about a RAISE grant that we had successfully competed for and been awarded, this item is all about starting that process back over and applying for a new RAISE grant. This application, if approved by the board, is solely for the benefit of COTPA and the City of Oklahoma City, in that what we are looking to do is compete for some federal funds to allow us to basically do an alternatives analysis, if you will, but this is all about facilities and infrastructure. So the main component of the grant application is planning fees, design, funding for design of a potential headquarter and maintenance facility building. So thinking of expansion and the new facilities that we will eventually need to construct on the 11 acres that we just purchased recently south of our current South May location. We need to get to work on designing those facilities. And so if we're successfully awarded this grant, we'll be able to do that. And as you know, the further along you have these projects in design and even into environmental, then ultimately that makes, say, the construction of the facility more competitive for other grant programs. So it's kind of all just building on itself. Secondly, the grant application includes some funding to take a look at our existing transit center. Are there ways to modernize that? Should there be ways that we need to look at reconfiguring that, just thinking about future growth? And then again, with the mindset of future growth, and I mentioned earlier, our OKC Moves study contemplates a several-year project or investment to improve the bus system. One of the things that's included in that OKC Moves, as you remember, was mini hubs or transfer stations out in the system versus everything having to come downtown. And so what we're also hoping to accomplish is taking some first steps on identifying like locations and maybe the footprint or the amount of land that would be required for some of those mini hubs. So all that said to say is if we're successfully awarded this grant, it really would put us in a great position to prepare for future expansion, which is at this point, it's inevitable with the MAPS 4 projects that are coming online at a minimum. As mentioned, the total grant application, $7.3 million. On the local funds, half of that is going to be funded by our COTPA capital reserves, and then the other half, excuse me, through city funds.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments about item D? If not, is there a motion to approve this resolution? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item E is a change order number 1 for the Prairie Surf Santa Fe parking garage skywalk repairs in the vicinity of 100 block of West Main Street to increase in the amount of $5,413 and accepting the project and placing maintenance bonds into effect. Jason? Oh, Corey.
Good morning. Not here to talk about parking today. As you know, as most of you know, we sold the Santa Fe parking garage to SFPG LLC in 2018. This Skywalk Bridge connects that garage to what is now known as the Wyndham Hotel. In February of 2021, when everything froze for, I think it was close to 2 weeks, the bridge suffered significant damage to its water system, HVAC system, the drywall, and the ceilings. This project made all of those repairs. However, the HVAC was, we used an on-call to make those repairs, which are still underway. But the general contractor's work is now complete. And then we also used an on-call as during the project, the window walls, the windows, we found leaks in them. So we had those leaks repaired because that would have led to mold and further drywall damage. But again, the project is now complete. They did a fantastic job. And as soon as we can get the fire sprinklers lowered a smidgen to match the ceiling, it'll be open to the public as the fire system will be turned on. Any questions?
It will be open to the public and maintained by us or maintained by somebody else?
Well, we're still talking to other parties about divesting that asset.
All right, okay. Enthusiastically, I hope.
Mr. Vice Chairman. So I need to point out to the trust, we have a Scrivener's error in the title
Yes.
of this item. So you'll notice in the title of the item and on our agenda, it says the total increase is $5,413. The actual increase, as exemplified on the second page when we list the amount of the change order, it's actually $5,143. Our backup documentation from our architect also, you can see the total there, $5,143. So Scrivener's error there. I'm sure there's probably some action we need to take just to make sure that we get that correct for the record.
Okay.
Josh, is there a recommendation, or do we just notate it as a Scrivener's error?
Yeah, at this point, somebody can make a motion to amend the motion that we're looking at in the proper amount, which is 5,000, what was it?
143.
143. We'll take a vote on that, and then if that passes, we'll vote to approve that.
Okay, so is there a motion to change the amount that is reflected on the item to $5,143?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded by Steve. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, so that motion passes.
So now you would take an actual vote to approve.
Okay. Okay, so are there any other questions for Corey about this item? If not, there has been It's been moved and seconded, so please vote electronically. So the change order motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, before we move off of items for individual consideration, I would request that I be reflected as voting yes on item D. I just wasn't paying close enough attention, Heather. I moved the item and then failed to push the button for yes. So I would like to be reflected as voting yes on that item. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 7 on our agenda is ratification of claims and payroll. Is there a motion to ratify our payroll and claims, vendor claims? We're moving towards that electronically. Oh, is that mine?
Are you in computer mode or?
Something, let's see. Yes,
There you go.
okay, here. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. And I vote yes.
Funny because your screen shows that you voted yes.
Okay, motion passes. Item 8 is receiving the financial reports. The first item we have is the COPTA Annual Financial Report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022, and Lindsay Nunn is going to present that. And I think we have a separate document that reflects that.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. As he said, my name is Lindsay Nunn, Accounting Manager in the Accounting Services Division of the Finance Department. And I'm here today to talk about the financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022 for the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority. Our external auditors were AGH, and this year they issued a clean opinion. The financial statements comply with all relevant pronouncements issued by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and there were no findings in this year's audit. The single audit is currently in process for fiscal year 2022. A single audit is required for any non-federal entity that expends more than $750,000 in federal award funds during its fiscal year. It's a separate report that it's issued for the city and its trust, and it reports federal expenditures by grant, and it includes an independent auditor's report. It is anticipated that the fiscal year 22 report is issued by March 31st of this year. The authority's net position increased $8.1 million in 2022 to bring it to a total of $107.5 million for its net position. Our net capital assets decreased by $509,000, primarily due to normal depreciation of $6.43 million, offset by construction and capital acquisitions of $5.92 million. Our bonds payable decreased $415,000 just due to regularly scheduled debt service payments. Our bond ratings at 6/30/22 continue to be excellent ratings, both by the Moody's reporting agent and Standard & Poor's. Our operating revenues increased $4.2 million for a total of $12.4 million for 2022. This was primarily due to increased ridership and parking revenues related to events due to the relaxation of COVID-19 restrictions in 2022. There was also an increase in transportation revenues due to the City of Norman interlocal agreement. Operating expenses increased $5.5 million for a total of $52.9 million. We had some maintenance expense increases due to contracts related to streetcar and parking operations. And our personal services increased also just due to salary and wage increases. Our net non-operating revenues increased $9.5 million for a total of $48.5 million. And this was due to increased grant revenues as well as increased subsidy from the city's general fund. Our net position that's restricted for pension benefits decreased $2.3 million, and the planned fiduciary net position as a percentage of the total pension liability is 84.06 as of the July 1st, 2021 actuarial valuation. More detailed information is available in the manager's discussion and analysis pages. Those are on pages 6 through 11 of the financial statement, which you all have copies of, and they just give a more detailed comparison of current year compared to prior year activities. Questions?
Okay. Are there any questions for Lindsay?
I don't have any, but I just want to just thank Lindsay and Amy Parker here from Accounting Services and their team for the great work they do, and I appreciate all that they're doing for COPTA.
Thank you.
I have a question. It relates to the date on the actuarial evaluation of the pension system. Is it common to have how often is that?
So those are always a year behind.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. No other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Do we need to receive item A separately? Is that what we're doing? Okay, yeah, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Mine says waiting.
I'm waiting.
Which one?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, the motion has been made by James and seconded by Megan. And
I vote yes.
Aye.
so you have a, okay, we have a recorded vote,
Just I push here.
the circle. Okay, so we're moving on to item B, which is the COPTA schedule of revenue and expenses budget to actual. Jason?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chairman, I know we have 3 other presentations, and just being aware of everybody's time, I keep my comments very short and just say that the financials that are included in your packet do not reflect, in my opinion, like any variance or any change from any of the trends that we've discussed in the previous months. And I can just take some questions unless you'd like me to go through the reports. I know that we have at least one trustee that is going to need to leave by 10:30. So.
Okay, are there any questions about the budget to actual financial report? If there's not, is there a motion to receive the reports? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to our program reports. The first one is a presentation on the Bus Rapid Transit update by Jesse.
Morning. Hope everyone had a fantastic January. Happy February. We'll jump right into it in just a second. Here we go. All right. We'll give a quick Northwest Rapid update. So our bus manufacturing, right? So we have 2 buses that are entering back into lineup in April, and we're expecting delivery in June. Our maintenance manager, Dennis Fry, and I will be flying into Anniston on Monday. We'll be inspecting that 3rd bus and making the decision on how to move forward with that 3rd bus on Monday. So look forward to that decision. So we'll talk a little bit about the construction that's been going on with the Northwest Rapid. So this is a great picture that we got from OKC Talk that shows the BRT platform at Pennsylvania and Northwest Expressway. This is our inbound stop right next to the Oak Development. You can see the expanse of the Oak Development there and where our BRT platform is in conjunction with that. And then this is our outbound and inbound stops, Northwest 10th and Dewey. Those are completed and the roadways have been opened back up. And then this is our inbound stop on Northwest 42nd and Classen, looking west. This is our connection to Newview. Wanted to kind of point this one out, showing that the platform is completed, and we're also rebuilding the driveway in that area, making it more accessible, not only for vehicles, but also for our paratransit vehicles. So kind of adjusting that angle slightly. And then this one's pretty exciting. So this is our Northwest 42nd class, and this is across the street from Newview. All right, so we've talked about that platform being complete, but this picture here shows that the signalized mid-block crossing is starting to go in. So this is the pole for that mast arm that's going to be going in there shortly. And then wanted to talk about the upcoming weeks. So we're going to see some construction continuing here at Northwest Expressway in Portland. The stars on the map are the locations of our BRT platforms, but we're going to start seeing those sidewalk connections going in, again, connecting our BRT platforms to the grocery store there at Pruitt Foods, but also to the retail on the north and south sides of Northwest Expressway. So we're going to also see some pretty significant signal and pedestrian improvements at Northwest Expressway in Portland at this intersection. I also wanted to point out that we've got some construction going on at Classen and 13th. So you'll notice on the inbound or the west side of Classen there, we've got some construction going on. We're slightly delayed there due to some waterline conflicts. When I say conflicts, what that means is, so we were going to be doing a tap on the water lines, but once we did some excavation, we noticed that there was also some storm sewer that was too close to the water lines for us to be able to make that tap, right? So literally within inches. And so we're working with Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust to figure out the best way to move forward and keep the construction moving forward. But we'll also start to see the outbound BRT platform being constructed, and with that comes the sidewalk and the bike lanes that are going on being added to Classen. Also, construction continues at Hudson and 8th. We're going to see construction throughout the rest of February and into early March at this location. We've got some underground utility work that's being done there. We had a slight delay there due to the weather, right? So we, with the ice storm this past week, we lost a few days there, but construction crews jumped back in yesterday afternoon to get that work going again as soon as possible. We're also working with the business owners in that area to try to mitigate as much impact to them as we possibly can. Working with our contractor, we're going to be opening up the roadways as soon as we possibly can. We look to do that toward the end of February, right around the 20th. So about 2 more weeks before we'll be able to, open up those roadways. We also have construction going on at Main and Broadway. This is at the northwest corner, where we'll be doing waterline work, continuing waterline work there. We recently just wrapped up some of the pedestrian improvements, but got some waterline work to do there. And then, as I showed in the pictures, we got a little bit more work to do at Classen Northwest 42nd with those sidewalk improvements. This is a visual of all of the platforms that are being constructed. You can see all the green and the red, and I want to draw attention to the orange in here. So those are going to be coming with the next change order amendment, Amendment 3 and 4, where we'll be adding the stops at at Classen and Northwest 31st, and the improved stops at Blackwelder, where they're the higher ridership stops. And then the stop at 56th in Portland, we're doing a slight redesign there, shifting the stop slightly to the east. This shows the overview of construction completion, and just in the essence of time, I'll focus on the total project completion. We're right around 27% complete. Again, these percentages are based off of our invoices that we get from our contractor and our most recent invoices from December. So obviously we've done a lot of work through the month of January. So that's 27%. In actuality, today's date, we're further along than that 27%. That completes the rapid presentation, the rapid presentation.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Jesse?
Jesse?
Yes.
Do you know anything about birthdays recently? Birthdays? Did you have a birthday?
Not me.
You
no.
didn't?
Somebody did.
Wait, did someone? I could have sworn on your Facebook somewhere around you. Man, now I'm just embarrassed.
Oh, no, man, you're talking about my wife.
Yes, I
Oh,
knew
my
it.
goodness,
Yes,
yeah.
good.
Yes, she did.
Oh, I was wrong,
Thank
but
you very much,
also
yeah.
kind of right. But wrong. I was wrong.
Yeah, just a few days ago. Turned 21, yeah.
And then Jason
Yeah.
as well. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's true.
Son of a gun. Transit birthdays all around. Well,
Yeah,
happy birthday,
yeah,
everybody.
yeah. My wife and Jason, they're 1 day apart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Neato.
True
Well,
story.
happy birthday, Jason, and happy birthday, Jill.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions on the BRT, other than birthdays?
Chairman, if I may, so our next presenter is Kristen Torkelson. I'd like to do just a quick introduction. She's going to be talking about our capital projects. So Kristen Torkelson's been really a part of the Embark family for many years now, so since 2017, right? So 2017, she was ADG, where she was part of the team that brought the OKC streetcar to Oklahoma City, where she was in contact with all of our business and property owners along the OKC streetcar route. Right after the streetcar launched, she came over to actually be part of the Embark family, where she was our community engagement liaison, where she expanded her reach and started really going out and meeting with all the property and business owners throughout our entire system, right? So making those connections. And with that, we've found out that Kristen's really great at making connections, right? And so we brought her in, and she accepted the role as our senior project manager. And thanks to the board and the trustees, you know, we've got a lot of projects in the works. We've talked a lot today about the growth that Embark's doing. Kristen's going to be able to show our capital projects and what that growth is actually looking like. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kristen.
Okay, thank you.
You can just keep, okay, that'll work.
Good morning and happy Friday. Okie dokie. All right, first up is the Regatta Park update for you all. This is where the most work has been done recently. So in this photo, you can see that the asphalt has been removed. We're basically waiting for temperatures so we can lay down the new asphalt for the parking lot. And then you can see those, the curb stops have all been moved. Those actually need to be put back, and then we'll have some bolts put in place so they don't move once they're put back. And then we have new doors for our restrooms. I believe this is the men's side. Women's is on the opposite side. Those got replaced. The lighter concrete that you can see, those are the panels of concrete that have been replaced. There were some cracks, there was some settlement, so it's all new and redone. We had new soffits put in. Basically, the roof had some damage, which led to some water damage. So all of that was replaced. We have the new paint done for the railings. There were also some handrails that had become loose, and so those have been resecured and also got a new fresh coat of paint. We had some grout work that was done throughout the property that's been completed. We have new gutters to go along with our new roof. And then here you can see the new roof, and then you can see those little windows up at the top there. The caulk was really damaged, and so they did some new caulking there, so hopefully we have no water damage in the future for quite some time. So then the work that remains at Regatta Park, we have the mill and overlay, like I was saying. We have the pins for the parking blocks, and then there's a bunch of the cast stone that's on top of just kind of like the brick railway or ramp kind of things. Some of this has been damaged by skateboarders. There's some like corners that have been chipped off. So there are pieces of that that'll be replaced. We have a new ADA ramp going in for boarding for our river ferries. And then we have a little bit more work to do in our restrooms. And then next up, we have the administration building remodel. If you all have been to our building, you know it's quite a labyrinth and it's a little bit of a hodgepodge situation. So we're finally getting to get some work done on this. Howard & Associates is our architect, and they've also done some work over at 420 on a couple of other floors. We're also working with Spaces for Interiors. So basically, we're working within the square footage and walls of the existing building to remodel that. Again, reminder that we had finance move back from Union Station when that was sold. And then we also have some new hires that are going to be coming in for other departments, as well as new hires for the BRT systems that are coming on. And in addition to this, because we have other people that we need to squeeze into the building, we will actually have a new addition over to the south. And it will include a large training room, and then we will actually move our safety department over there. So that'll be exciting. So at the moment, our team is putting together a cost estimate, and this will include the floor plan, the exterior renderings, and then this cost will go to the board for approval in March. So we'll have more to update then. And then we have our transit center remodel. Let me get back to my notes, I got a little ahead. So Libra actually started replacing the canopy lights yesterday. They got a lot of work done. They're halfway through. They should be wrapping that up today. And then Lo Runkle, who's the architect for Public Works, we are having biweekly meetings with small architects, and then TCS is our contractor. So those have started. So the canopy lights that I was talking about earlier, those are the blue dots that you see in the slide. So again, half of those are done. They'll be finishing those up today. The yellow dots that you see, the exterior canopy lighting, those lights should be coming at the end of this month, and so those will start getting replaced in March. And then our next project that we have is the fence at 2000 South May. This is being done with the security grant. So you can see in the picture here, this is one of our pedestrian gates. This is over on the Southwest 18th side. The other one that we have is located on Southwest 20th. And then this is the May side. So you can see the whole line all the way down. And then this is our corner. We have two of these that are identical. One's at 18th and one is at Southwest 20th. Basically, the monument sign that we have along May is now blocked by our fence. So if we wanted to move that or do a new monument sign, we did this kind of angle situation so it would kind of, tuck in nicely there. And then the remaining work, they actually started work on one of the vehicle gates yesterday. It'll be motorized as well as the exit gate. And then the pedestrian gates, they've been installed, but it'll be like a badge access eventually. So that is to be done. The next project we have is the FAM landing. Obviously, there's a whole lot of work that's not pictured here with the O'Connor Resort and everything else that's happening, but you can see the FAM Museum. The landing will actually be just straight north of the museum itself. And we actually had a meeting on the 31st of January to review the two concepts that were presented by the architects. We received the draft schedule, and then the estimated work should be complete by May of 2024. That was a lot. Does anybody have any questions?
Are there any questions or comments about our capital projects? Thank you, Kristen.
Okay, no
Appreciate
problem.
it. Okay, moving on to a presentation of the Transit Service Report, and this is Jesse and Joel Garcia.
It's me again. Trustee Cooper, you made my wife's day, by the way. Yeah, I appreciate that. I was texting her. She's super excited. Yeah. So I'll give a quick update on our transit. So we had the privilege of being a part of the MLK Day Parade. This is a photo. What you don't see is Cody running down the sidewalk, getting these pictures for us. So appreciate you doing that, Cody. Appreciate that. It was obviously a pleasure to be a part of this day in Oklahoma City, and just the great turnout. We literally had chamber weather for the parade, so it was perfect. So we'll talk a little bit about our ridership. So in December, we saw a 10% increase over last year. So we're continuing to see that increase and that growth in our fixed route system. We saw nearly a 35% increase for the month of December over 2020. So you can see in the month of December, we had 210,000 riders use our fixed route system. Now what I'd like to do is kind of break that down a little bit. So our average daily weekday, that's our Monday through Friday ridership, we saw about nearly 8,000 riders per day through the weekday in the month of December. And then our average weeknight ridership, we saw nearly 300 on average. And then our average daily ridership for our Embark Plus system for the month of December was 3,500. And again, we saw a slight decrease over the previous year, but a 2% increase over 2020. And then our average daily ridership for our Embark Plus system for the month of December was 113. So again, just a slight decrease there. So that was quick. Fixed route and para ridership, but I did want to take an opportunity to introduce you guys to Joel Garcia. Again, another individual who's really been a part of our Embark family since 2017, where he came on board with Herzog Transit, where he's our operations manager for the OKC streetcar, and just recently came over to actually be part of the Embark family, where he's the streetcar manager, but he also has oversight of our Spokies and our Oklahoma River ferry system. So you can see here, this is back in 2017 when we were all getting together, writing our plans and SOPs to launch the streetcar. And then our family of Herzog and Embark employees at the OKC streetcar facility getting ready to launch the system. And then Joel, as he does, he's lives and breathes transit. He was giving a tour of the OKC streetcar facility to a STEM class in Oklahoma City. And if you'll notice, Joel is very safe. He always has his safety vest on. He doesn't have it on today for the presentation. Come on up, Joel.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Rush, for the introduction. As you can see, our ridership for the streetcar, we did see a slight decrease from the previous year. While we did have a very robust December, as you know, we were doing our free rides Friday through Sunday to support some of our local events in the downtown area. A little colder than normal weather in the month of December. I bring this to your attention because since we just came out of some of that cold weather, our streetcar professionals, just like our Embark bus professionals, are always there to serve our citizens, no matter what the weather is, and we're always prepared to make sure that we're there to deliver service. Our Spokies, while we did experience some colder weather, we still were able to maintain almost with a slight decrease from our previous year, as you can see there, with our new e-bike program. Our river cruises, as you can see, there's no numbers for December. Obviously, river cruises do not run in December, but I wanted to leave you with a kind of a year recap. So what you're seeing there is a total ridership down in the bullet points for 22, and this number is encompassing everything that we do from not only our transit service, but also some of the special events that we participate, especially with the river sport, with their Christmas and things of that nature. As you can see, we had a very strong year of 7281 in comparison to 2021. I would like to add a little asterisk to that number. That 2021 was a short year, but we did see a large increase in our ridership, getting us back to pre-COVID numbers. Any questions?
Any questions or comments for Joel? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. So at this point, we'll go ahead and have a motion to receive our program reports. It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Okay. Oh, okay. So we have vote, yes vote from James and Meg. Okay. Motion passes. Okay, items from the trustee. James? Meg? Laura? Brett? Steve?
Would like to, hey, you got, the trust asked for an RTA update, so that's what I'm here to provide. So just a couple of quick bullet points for you on the progress that the Regional Transportation Authority is making. So we've talked about the corridors in the past, you know, it's east and then it's north-south. So on the east corridor, the RTA is continuing to narrow down the exact alignment. The last step of that and what they've been working on is really kind of, I'd say, an economic analysis. It's, as I mentioned, you know, there's really, you know, sometimes when you get into these, there's like a clear corridor that just outscores the other one. These are pretty close, so they're taking a deeper dive and actually doing an economic analysis to kind of determine which corridor might have the most economic development potential, so that can go into the consideration. So that's where the RTA is at on the east corridor. On the north-south corridor, the station locations have actually been identified, so we know how many and where they're going to be located. Obviously, we're still discussing that information in executive session with the board because eventually that would lead to property acquisition. But one of the main things that's changed since maybe some early discussions of the north-south corridor is the location of the maintenance facility. So whereas we were looking in somewhere in the central part of the alignment for the maintenance facility, it's now determined that the maintenance facility will likely be located at the end of the line in the city of Norman. So that's a change there. And then finally, as mentioned earlier, the RTA does anticipate awarding a contract to Kimley Horn, hopefully in February, as we finish up that paper grant agreement we discussed earlier, ideally no later than March, to begin the study of those two west corridors, and we'll make sure we include some discussion and analysis of Meridian. So that will conclude my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're glad you're back from having a little COVID experience last week. We appreciate you.
Very good to be back. Thank you.
You're back and healthy. Thank you. There's nothing else. We'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.